Hello, welcome to the Let's Play for Batch 7 of the third coursework for COMP3218, University of Southampton's Game Design course. I'm Adrian Chapman, and with me today are...
I'm Ted Cater, I'm a first-year PhD student.
I'm Colin Spalforth, I'm also a PhD student.
Excellent, thank you. So today we're going through the third coursework in which the students were asked to submit a short game in which they demonstrated one of four different things: either adaptive difficulty, procedural generation of content, the use of a novel game interface, or a location-based element. Today we'll start with Fuzz Ball.
Who wants to take the... I guess I'm driving the first one?
Yeah, you go for it.
Alright. So look what the controls are. A, D, space, and space. Alright.
I like that they've incorporated a tutorial. They have brought together elements from the first coursework and remembered them.
Fantastic. I mean, just having a control screen is always valuable, especially given nobody will know how to play otherwise. I'm dead already.
You're dead already. I really actually was going to say the graphics in this are really beautiful.
They're really cute.
They're adorable.
Okay, I'm not good at this.
I think they've done something that we should tell all students, which is just to keep it simple.
Yes, it is an enjoyable game, and it doesn't need to have everything, does it? It's perfectly standalone by itself.
Sorry, I'm terrible at this.
Okay, so this one is adaptive difficulty and procedural generation.
So one thing they don't tell you in the controls is if you fall off the screen. If you wait till you hit the ground, you can do a super jump. So if I time my jump correctly, you get a nice big...
Do you think that's a glitch?
No, it is a feature, that one. They said that in the expo. What is a glitch is platforms not appearing. So I think what happened there was I actually jumped too high, the platform went off the screen, and no. And the red thing spawned on top of me, okay. So I would say I think it needs at the very least a little bit more sort of sanitizing of where those
droplets actually have bounding boxes.
And the platforms as well to some extent, I think. Because Okay.
So, for adaptive difficulty, they are trying to linearly match the skill of the player with the difficulty. So they start adding ink drops to make it more difficult after they feel the player has gotten the gist of the game.
I mean, they seem to be making it easier. I don't know what that says about me. I thought I was doing pretty well this run.
So then they add, as the player gets better, which I think you might have reached that point, they increase the difficulty two different ways so that...
No! Sorry.
So they add different types of platforms to try to change the difficulty later, which I think you might have hit that place in this last bit of gameplay.
So they started adding the 3 platform sets, right?
Yeah.
But that seems to be making it easier, oddly. Despite having,
Did it? You died there. I couldn't tell if it was because you died or there was something about it.
I think that was me being bad.
Okay.
It's quite tricky sometimes to tell when the double jump is gonna... How far that will actually carry you.
Yes.
Oh. So that was mean.
So what do you think the inputs are for the adaptive difficulty engine are? Do you think score is probably the main one? Right?
Yeah, so it looks like they're actually doing a fairly straightforward. When the score hits 10, they do ink drops. When the score passes 50, they add multiple platforms to try to level out the game. Actually, so you're right. They were actually intentionally trying to make it a little easier. When the score hits 100, which we haven't actually seen yet, there are red platforms that are dangerous if you land on them.
That sounds horrible. All right.
If the score is 150, there are moving platforms.
So you're saying I need to get to 150?
Sorry,
that's what I'm taking from this. When will they learn that we're bad at this?
I think it's the case with a lot of these games that they become experts at their own
Yes.
games.
It does happen a lot here.
Come on. Oh. I'm just trying to get that super jump in, and there we go. Oh, no. So those droplets don't seem to be spawning in any consistent place. I think it might just be wherever you happen to be at the time. I think I'd like a little bit... See that then? That's already a hard jump to make, right?
Yes. Your score is now over 10.
Nope, goodbye. So if I never get a score over 10, those droplets will never appear.
Yes.
It's just...
Let's just keep going. You can't just sit there. Oh, there's your 10.
That's quite quick for
Yeah.
grasping
Yeah.
the gist of the game.
It's got quite fast cycles in it, though. So you can repeat it quite quickly,
Yeah.
which is nice. No. Let's see.
Do you feel like the
Sometimes,
difficulty is actually responsive to how you were playing?
not really. To be honest, it feels quite random. So I don't... It's definitely getting... No, it seems like, especially those droplets spawning, it seems a little arbitrary. Sometimes they spawn sort of miles away from where I am, and like that one had a nice big gap in it, really easy to get through.
And not only that, but the gap was
What's
actually
that?
near the platform that you
Yeah.
were on and going to.
Mm.
Yeah, there is definitely some interesting things between the gaps where the ink is spawning.
Like, why is it over there?
Yeah.
I think it should take the player's position into account, because sometimes the best thing
Yes.
to do is to wait until the drops are, and then you position yourself based on that.
Yeah.
But sometimes by the time that's happened,
You can't.
it's spawned. Spawned the ink in an impossible place to dodge.
So this one, for example, some of them will drop 3 on the platform itself,
Yeah.
which means you've got to jump off the platform to avoid getting inked. Yeah,
And maybe that's a feature. Maybe you jump up
maybe.
and then right, left. Yep, like that. You did better there. Well done.
So now we've got multiple platforms, it looks like. So, I know we've said this 1,000 times, but could they please put in sort of an easy mode for us so we can actually...
You pathetic supervisor mode.
Yeah, just... We are bad at this. Give us a chance to see all of your game content without having to be good at your game.
So, based on what we can see, let's talk about quality. So, how do the controls feel?
The controls are very tight. The platform is very straightforward and satisfying.
Okay.
There's a few little jitters, but I think that's down to the build rather than the game.
Yep. Do we like the mechanics of this game? Do they all work together?
They're very, very simple.
They are. But you do play them. So I would actually say that right there is a game. That if you jumped so high and you kind of missed a platform and it went off the screen,
Yeah.
that was a scrolling issue. There was no other platform to possibly aim for.
It doesn't... On the one hand, it is down to the player to try and avoid scrolling that high.
Yes.
But it does feel a little unfair every
Yes.
time.
Yes.
Just like those droplets then
those droplets
spawned
right there
on my level, and I got
Yes.
through that by luck rather than...
Yeah.
than any skill, right?
Yeah.
So there are a few things in here that could have been improved,
Oh.
or could be improved in terms of
Just making
feel
it
of the game and presentation
feel
of it.
fair to the player, right?
Yeah. On the other hand, presentation-wise, it's beautiful. It really is
Yeah,
beautiful.
absolutely.
The music adds a lot to it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So look at this. This is now really like
Oh, look at you!
climbing a ladder here.
We need that 150.
I don't like you anymore. There we
Oh,
go.
There we
All
go,
right.
The red.
platforms.
I wonder what does happen.
Whoa,
So when you're ready to die, jump on a red. There you
That
go.
wasn't.
Oh,
That was
just
deliberate.
a game
That
over.
was
Sure,
deliberate.
it was deliberate. Okay, so basically a red is just a game over.
Yeah.
Well, I'd prefer an explosion, but
Yeah.
fine.
What was interesting there as well, though, was like that there is definitely a harder jump than that platforming at the end.
Yes.
So the difficulty was definitely getting easier the further I got, which is not what I'd expect, right?
Yes.
And it feels very. I mean, if we thought of this as a linear progression, so I mean, when you hit certain thresholds in the score, it goes up.
Mhm.
Is that really adapting to the player?
So to a specific player, or is it just a leveling?
Yeah.
Yeah.
if I get a certain distance.
Yeah, I mean,
then,
maybe if it recognised that a player was dying more often to falling off, it would space the platforms
Now
differently.
Yeah.
right.
Or it would space the red drops differently if they were more prone to that sort of mistake.
Yes. And as they master a particular skill, they try the red exploding platforms that don't explode.
Stupid lag.
Okay, so fulfilling the brief in terms of that, so we kind of start moving on to that part of the criteria for this. We're not entirely sure that it's a good example of adaptive difficulty. It's probably more like a leveling problem.
Yeah.
And examples of better adaptive difficulty would be Callum can't make a jump between really high platforms, so give him a few of these happier little ones.
Interesting. First. The platform spawning does seem to be based on my previous jump, though. So if I jump really high, it seems like those gaps between the platforms are getting more spaced out.
Now that's interesting. So maybe we've done them a disservice here.
Maybe. But at the same time,
see that jump there
it's not touching.
Sort of contradicts.
So if I deliberately only make small jumps, okay, that one's not quite a single jump. So, see what I mean? I think I'm actually, it feels a little bit like gaming the system here, but I guess with the big jumps, your score goes up faster. So there is that.
So in their course notes,
that's not fair.
Yeah, is that specified in the course notes?
I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing this in the anything about. Oh wait, platforms are generated by platform generator that sits on the main camera and randomly generates the XY position in the player's view, so the player can always reach the next platform.
Okay.
It's a nice bit of sanitation, though.
It is random.
It is random, and thank you for specifying that. So. Final quality criteria that we're looking at is meaningfulness. So does the adaptations that they put in make for a more interesting play? Or conversely, a different way of asking that question would be, if they designed all of this by hand,
you can't jump through the platforms.
The red ones? If they designed this completely by hand and there was no adaptive difficulty or procedural generation, would it be the same game, a better game, a worse game?
I think the procedural generation definitely adds something to the replayability. I think it could definitely use some fine-tuning and tweaks just to make sure that it's consistent, and then we don't have some of these, I would say, these more random locations of like drops, things like that. And again, the adaptive difficulty needs to actually respond to an individual player's performance rather than just their score.
Just a score, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I would definitely say that the procedural generation adds to meaningful play.
I mean, it would definitely be a different game without the procedural generation.
Yes.
And it wouldn't be able to be based quite around the fast iteration cycles that it is.
Yes.
But yeah, it does feel very... they could have done a lot more to cater it to me as a player, I think.
Sure.
As is, yeah.
Okay. All right, so thank you for the game, and should we move on?
Maybe. So what's next? Oh, okay.
Pipe the ball.
Do you want to do this one, Ted?
Yeah. Do you want to have a quick read of the notes before we start?
So again, we have a little tutorial. I mean, again, this is just words on a page, but I think for this, it's possibly counts. Thank you for the instructions.
So, nice UI design, actually. Look at that.
Oh, all right. Okay, so you can double jump. You don't want to get hit by the balls, the pipes, and whenever you get stuck, that's your score. Cool.
I have a feeling these pipes are going to start moving left and right if I get a good enough score. So this is fun.
It's fun to watch. We've become entranced. How does the controls feel on the ball?
Actually,
and you're jumping.
really, really tight. It does take some initial getting used to.
Oh, and it did move.
There we go.
So you hit that at 13 levels,
13.
or pipes, is when it first moved.
Yeah. The ball bouncing is a little different to a lot of these kinds of games where the jumping, rather than setting the velocity, it actually sort of adds to it. So if I'm moving down quickly, rather than immediately jumping me up, it'll actually just slow the fall.
Right.
Which is a little different to some similar games I've played. But that's not a bad thing. It actually makes me feel like I'm more in control of the ball. Oh, here we go.
Oh, there was a much faster moving pipes all of a sudden there.
Yeah, so what are the... is this adaptive difficulty or procedural generation, or...?
They say it's a little bit of both.
A little bit of both, okay. What are the inputs to the... score one of them by any chance?
So, score does seem to be the only input. So, every set of 5 pipes, they increase the difficulty. And when they increase the difficulty, the pipes spawn closer together.
Okay.
So, it's linear in the user's score. I must admit, I'm not... Oh, that was... Okay. Yeah, so as the player progresses into the game, the required difficulty grows linear with the player's skill until a certain threshold is met, which is considered the highest level of difficulty, and this is set of 35th set of pipes.
35th, okay.
Yes, you just need to get to 35.
Just keep going.
Sure you can manage it. Third of the way there.
It is addictive.
So let's while you're attempting to get to 35, let's talk about the game itself. There was one place where you died back there where it looked like, again, the ball had scraped through, but obviously it hit a bounding box within the object itself. And you said that the controls were nice.
So you can't get through that once it's...
So I noticed that once you pass through a set of pipes, they stop moving. But I could slip back through it without moving left or right, and I couldn't go past it again.
Interesting. So it's a very straightforward game.
It is a very straightforward game. Do we think the mechanics work? Like, is it an interesting game? Do they go together into a cohesive thing?
It is clearly a very tightly put together game.
Yeah.
With some very obvious dynamics. Clearly satisfying to play.
Yes.
But at the same time, it is very, very simple. It is just moving pipes and, increasing a ball's speed, really.
Yes. Now, again, we come back to the question about, is this really adaptive difficulty, or is it just leveling?
So I don't think it is, really, because it's the only thing it's monitoring is the player's progress through the game.
Yes.
And the only way in which you can argue that's the player's skill is because it gets harder.
Yes.
And of course it gets harder. It's that sort of game. So,
what changes do you think you would make to it to make it more adaptive difficulty?
That's a mean question.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just wondering what else they could have done.
So some of the challenges with very simple games like this are, on the one hand, you can definitely get them done. You can make them really polished and fun to play. But there's not a lot you could huck adaptive systems into to model the player. So I guess in this you could model how the player is, how fast they're mashing the keyboard, how close they're coming to the pipes in any particular run.
Yeah.
Sort of how successful they're being with actually passing through the pipes. To what extent they're moving left to right. If they're not moving left to right a lot, you could maybe offset the pipes a little bit to the left and right.
Absolutely. On the other hand, the other things you could do is using those same bits of information. You could have a try again. And you could have a restart the game completely button, which would essentially wipe the player state. And between plays, you could maintain that user, that set of variables about what a user does well or poorly, and change what the pipes are doing based on those bits of information.
I mean, in a way, it would actually be a more satisfying game if as you progressed, much in a roguelike fashion, you unlocked more mechanics to play with as the game went on.
Now that would actually be really interesting.
Yeah. And especially if those mechanics that you unlock depended on how you played, rather than, say, pickups and equipment as it might in a roguelike.
Yes.
That would be really interesting.
Okay,
yes,
so
I agree.
There are no walls, and I appear to have fallen off the bottom bounding box, so I'm going to have to refresh that. I just wanted to see if I could get around the pipes and cheat the system. But I might try that again.
So one of the interesting things about this is it is a very simple game, and it really, on the one hand, bugs like that are going to happen. With such a simple game, I would expect there to be fewer bugs like that.
Oh, look, we might get to 35.
Oh,
except
you're not getting
I
any
don't
points.
get the points because I'm not going between the pipes.
Ah.
What if I go back? What if I go back into the?
Can you get back in?
Oh, I hit the pipe. I hit the pipe on the way in.
All right.
Okay.
Now let's talk about the meaningfulness of what they have done, and I think we've actually kind of touched on this. Would it be better if they had just hand coded which pipes were where, and and in fact, I think they might have, right?
Well, the difference would have been
the offset
negligible.
is to the left on 13, and the speed increases at 18.
Especially since the game actually caps out in difficulty at 35 pipes.
Yeah.
Then it essentially is sort of repeated every time. There's no hugely meaningful difference between each of these runs. The pipes are spaced out and moving slightly differently, but it's barely enough to change the gameplay in any meaningful way.
Yes.
It almost is just a hard-coded level.
Agreed. All right. Well, I think perhaps we should move on.
Okay.
It is a beautiful game.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of...
They've put a lot of time into polishing
graphics
it and making the controls feel responsive, and
it is something you'd expect to see on a mobile game.
Absolutely.
Right. Let's see what we have next. What GL3 it is. Fish It! Or Fishventure, or Fishy Time.
Fishventure?
Do you want to play this one, Age?
I'm not sure.
This one is hard.
Yes. Oh no, so all right. We're gonna try. Are you ready?
Oh yeah.
They hold space to swim up, so okay. Whoa, I died. I didn't even
You failed at hurdle 1.
I couldn't even hold the space. Oh. Alright.
Yeah, Dave's laptop is getting quite hot.
Alright. Oh no!
So, unlike in something like Blackbird, you can hold it to swim up rather than just mashing. So you can. Also, I'd look at the screen because the delay.
Okay.
Yeah, make sure you look at the.
Now you can stop all laughing at me. I will try to hold up my end here. You guys talk because I can't.
So it's clearly got some inspiration from sort of Flappy Bird and the classic sort of helicopter games.
Mm-hmm.
Reminds me of that classic sort of era of Flash game so far.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I love the little tutorial space at the beginning here before I start crashing things. I've seen it a lot now, and I'm still enjoying it.
It's very much nailed the sort of slightly arcadey pixel aesthetic as well.
Mm-hmm.
The way they've done the text and the scores and even the little fish.
So
Makes it very
definitely some procedural generation in here, in that I've hit different obstacles every time I've died. And is there supposed to be any adaptive difficulty? Because by now they should know I suck. And
Yeah, he claims that there is adaptive difficulty, and when the game restarts, it calculates the averages of your previous runs and the speed, which changes.
So how come I'm not yet swimming through a completely open sea?
I think the lower bound of the difficulty is still too high for you, Edge.
Say it like it is.
There's no polite way to say it.
It does seem though like on some of these runs the difficulty is varying quite a lot.
Just be kind.
I think
in all seriousness,
the procedural generation and the adaptive difficulty don't seem to be linked, which they perhaps ought to be.
or at
in a
least
game like
they're
this.
not as consistent as I'd expect them to be. On zero difficulty, as it's claiming to be now, I would very much expect sort of just a straight cavern to go through. That maybe gets a bit narrower.
Maybe a little stalactite here and there, but yes.
Yeah.
But it's throwing in some quite severe stalactites and things at points. And which doesn't quite match up with the sort of some of the earlier levels you've been getting, and just the fact that your difficulty is 0.
And I still can't do so. Someone might have to put me out of my misery soon and get beyond.
Callum was a pro at this during the expo, so
I definitely would not go that far. So, what do we think of the?
So I think the procedural generation. He used a bespoke algorithm. He says, which I think might not have been the right choice because there are a lot of these algorithms to do with, two-dimensional noise, and you get things like water wave algorithms using springs that can generate much smoother.
That was unfair. Sorry.
That can generate much smoother caves. And again, I think maybe it should have been linked to the difficulty. So, like you said, we should have had some open areas like that. I think
that was a hard one.
That is quite
a hard one.
Yeah.
No, that wasn't a hard one myself. So
I mean, it's quite an interesting level to navigate. It's quite aesthetic. Though the actual obstacles definitely seem a little. There's a lot of features in this that are almost purely aesthetic because they're coming directly after stalactites and things.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but the actual obstacles that the player will face are quite limited.
I think Dave's laptop's getting a bit too hot as well.
All right. So why don't you come around here and somebody can...
So it says that to improve the difficulty, which I think is primarily the speed at which you go through the level, players must regain 10% of the average of their score for the difficulty to increase. And so they have to consistently perform well over the previous, I think it was 5 games that they've played, and then it will start. And basically what it does is it starts you at a higher speed of the game, and it starts you with a higher score as well. So say you're a pro, you don't have to start from 0 again.
Which is very nice.
Yeah,
actually.
and you don't have to go through the really slow or boring levels for someone who's really good at the game. See, I told you Callum was good.
Yeah, he is.
But Callum also found during the expo that there is a soft, almost like score limit, because eventually...
Oh, I'd lagged.
Yeah, that happened to me in the last game. So eventually the game becomes almost impossible to play if you're not an agent. Even though the gaps are technically you can get through them.
We've
human
had
overheads,
yeah.
So there's a soft score cap of like 175-ish. Or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Which we thought was a little unfair because it seems like
that.
Yeah.
We thought this fell into the criteria of punishing the player for being too good.
So I would say that this has happened in a few games in the past that a lot of the algorithms that they've chosen have been they go through and they calculate that yes, this object can fit through, but as you say, is essentially humanly impossible. And I think instead of saying that punishing the player, I might just give that the benefit of the doubt and say this is something to look for in some of or to watch out for in some of the algorithms you choose for generating obstacles. Yeah.
It's quite an easy mistake to make when you try and write your own rather than using, but also at the same time, it's fun to try and write your own algorithm. It is. So we won't.
It is. So I will admit, I was so paying attention to the game, I'm not entirely sure which pieces of the brief you've already remarked upon. I kind of got a little tunnel vision in there.
Let's go through it properly then. Let's talk about sort of. Oh,
yeah, we start with quality. We've discussed. I'm not even sure I'd call it a bug, but there are some places where technically doable, but is it actually doable by a player? The controls were nice.
Simple, but they work.
Yeah. The mechanics. Are we happy with the mechanics?
Yeah, I mean,
I think the way they frame everything on screen is good. Like the fish is in a consistent position. It's bright. Yep. It's clear where it is.
Yep.
Maybe there could have been some color variation between the background and the world, but I also think that's actually it fits with the theme of the games and it is clear. So.
Agreed. I think the only thing I would add to that is there's a slight glare coming through on the windows, and it was actually difficult just to distinguish between that dark blue and the black occasion.
Yeah.
But that's a minor tweak, and the only other minor comment would be, I really want to hear some noise.
Yeah.
Even if it was just music and not fishy sounds and bubbles. Or the other, right? This is the kind of game where you get engrossed and you need to have all your senses engaged.
Yeah. Arcade games only need a few simple pops of sound, and then it can really add a lot of feel each time. It'll feel even more responsive to the user.
Agreed. So they have chosen to do procedural generation for this to fulfill their brief. Actually, procedural generation, yes, they have, and adaptive generation. Sorry, I'm taking a quick glance at the game notes.
So how exactly have they done the procedural generation?
So, like I said, it's an algorithm that they worked on themselves. So, if I'm just reading straight from the notes, each vertical pair of walls is calculated as a height and center of the gap for swimmable area for the fish. Takes the data of the last segment, calculates a new center that exists within the gap of the previous segment. So I suppose it just looks at the previous columns and then randomly sets the next height within some threshold that they can check.
Okay. So it's quite a straightforward little algorithm then for generating it. So let's talk about meaning, I think.
Yes.
So let's talk about the adaptivity first, I think. Don't lag on me.
So, adaptivity-wise, right. It takes user variables and allows you to stay in the same place for a while.
So it definitely improves the start of the... Well, that's meaningfulness anyway.
Yes.
But yes, it models the last 5 or so runs of the game, right?
Yes.
So it's still quite a simple score-based system. Sort of how far do you get, rather than modelling more nuanced
That's true.
players.
That you're horrible about going up, but you fall down just fine.
Yeah. Which could have made for some more interesting level designs that sort of challenge the player.
So yeah, the input is the score, which affects the starting score, which is ideally to reduce frustration in really good players who want to start another run. And then the output is the speed at which the fish goes through. I think it would have been nice for, like I said, the procedural content to be generated with respect to the adaptive difficulty. So,
yes.
So yeah, if a
having
player,
those two tied in a meaningful way, yes, would have made this an improved game.
So what about the procedural generation then, in terms of meaning?
So I think, except for the bug we identified, where technically yes, that fish can fit through the gap, but it is highly unlikely that a human could do it.
Yeah.
They implemented their own algorithm and it works, right?
It works well enough, yeah. For a bespoke algorithm, it works really well, I'd say. And
in terms of meaningfulness, right? There's always that can play forever. Go you.
Fish to the wall.
Right. Right. So.
Just think there's anything else. Yeah, still overall quite a nice game. It's got some nice improvements to the adaptivity and quite fun to do the procedural. Although again, it is still fundamentally built on that fairly straightforward linear system on it.
It is based on purely score.
Which is a shame.
Yeah.
But yeah, good little game.
Enjoyable. Absolutely. Should we move on?
Yeah. Our last game is Roly Snow.
Oh, the music.
Relaxed already.
Yep.
I really like the menu. The menu with the music and the really simple...
That's very small text.
Just text does not a tutorial make. Although, thank you for putting it in.
And credits as well.
Oh, it is credits. Yeah. That's even better.
Arrow keys to avoid obstacles. Alright. Short and to the point.
Yeah, but good job for putting credits in.
Nice little opening cutscene thing going on there as well.
Now, this is a tutorial. I love the arrows are there. Well done on that.
It's such a simple addition, but it really does help.
You know, the trail in the snow adds so much. It could have been just a ball falling, but that trailing bit of
are we
line.
There doesn't seem to be any
obstacles right now.
maybe you died too soon
Oh,
last
Oh,
time.
there we go.
But it gave us those trees last time, and whereas now we're getting,
Great job.
you know, the occasional house.
You know, I love that there
It's not hidden.
still tutorial information coming up.
Hmm.
You'd have the difficulty isn't hidden behind numbers that the player never sees.
Yes. It's beautiful. I mean, really.
Yeah. But
And the music is right. No, don't get frustrated yet. I'm sure we'll see something else. Yes, let's go faster.
ooh, all right.
It's the ball's getting bigger because it's rolling through the snow.
Yeah, I noticed that.
way.
That's quite. It's very slow, but it's noticeably doing it. All right, here we go. This is now some level. Here we go. Ah, don't lag. No. I think the music might be to stop me punching the laptop screen. I think it's really nice, but I can't. So it doesn't go with the sort of tension the game is sort of naturally giving by virtue of being stressed, but
that's
kinda
really
works.
interesting because the music to me matched very nicely with the pattern that you've been drawing with the trail in the snow. It's very trance. And yeah, whereas you're right, like it's not. I should be worried about the snowball growing.
You're not playing.
No.
Yeah, it's not the approach I'd usually expect someone to take, but in this case, I think it
really
works.
Well. Oh, and look, we're still tutorializing. You took a little speed away
Yeah.
because. Now, when you died last time, I'm so sorry. I missed. I was reading the course notes. Did you run into something like not a tree?
I bumped into I sort of pinballed between a couple of trees.
Ah.
Ooh, if we stay over to the left, it seems quieter. Oh, I have lives as well. But how does that play into things then?
Because
I
lost
see.
the life, you decreased the speed.
Yeah.
So I'm simultaneously a little bit disappointed about that and a little happy, because I like the fact there's lives in this.
Yes.
But equally, I did think it was based on sort of, your speed, so each time you'd slow down, and if you hit too many obstacles in a row, you'd lose. And I was like, oh, that's quite a nice system.
Yeah.
There's actually, lives as... I mean, it still works, but I think I just thought it was working in a different way.
So interestingly, remember your first question of, hey, this first time I saw a forest right away, and then the second time you played through, there was just large gaps of snow. So they actually specifically addressed that if somebody hits an obstacle, particularly in the very beginning, they assume the player isn't so great and tune the difficulty down a lot.
Okay, that's quite nice.
I think somebody might have heard us when we finally said, please, your module team doesn't play.
Thank you, gods, of taking it easy on us.
So there's that initial gauge of player skill.
Does the score... No. Does the score tie into how fast you're going or the difficulty of the obstacles generated?
So the faster you go, the higher your score increases.
Okay.
So if you're better at the game, you attain a higher score faster. But then obviously when you hit an object, you'll slow down, and so that'll decrease the rate at which your score goes up. So I think it's a nice enough way of responding to like a mistake that the player makes.
See, this is... Oh, no.
So all these obstacles
Just getting
are
relaxed.
procedurally generated. And they use 3 different patterns to generate: random forest, paths through forest, and villages. Or they have 3 different things that can go down: random forest, paths through the forest, and villages. They use a generative grammar to choose which pattern.
So, one thing I'm noticing playing it is the difficulty has been very inconsistent between runs.
You think?
Which, yeah, that was not a helpful time to do that. But this run feels noticeably easier because it's not got those zigzagging forests quite so much.
Right.
But my score is only dependent on how far I've progressed. So I'm getting sort of the same score for runs of varying difficulty, if that makes sense.
No, I'm not entirely sure that's true. I believe they said in here that score is... sorry, let me find the right section. Experienced... So here's the sentence, and it's not quite the full sentence. Experienced players may quickly advance to a higher difficulty, which would help them attain a higher score quicker, whereas inexperienced players may progress more linearly at a slower paced difficulty, but would have to play longer to achieve the same score.
Okay.
So there is they at least state in the course notes that they are trying to change how the score is accumulated based on how you're playing.
I think it just depends, because we're not really sure where we are in their skill level. So like, is 400 a high score?
I don't know, yes.
It's Callum's highest score, and he finds it easier because he hasn't encountered the pass through the trees.
Yeah, this is proving very straightforward compared to the previous runs to some extent. Like, I'm not noticing particularly increases in difficulty, despite doing much better than my previous runs.
I think that a nice and quite simple fix for that would just be to keep track of the last sort of 10 segments that he's thrown the play and say, okay, we haven't thrown a pass through the trees in however long, so let's increase the probability of that turning up.
Yeah.
And that would be a little more balanced.
There we go. The thing is, in part, I kind of don't want it to get harder. It's quite a relaxing game when it's straightforward. And it's not quite... It's sort of the aesthetic... Oh, that was bad.
I think you just hit 2 trees at once and there's 2 lives.
Yeah.
It has a habit of sort of ping-ponging you between trees.
Right.
I think a little...
See, this is still really hard right now compared to the previous forest that we're generating.
And that's just it. So I believe they take into your previous score when they restart.
So is it only adapting between runs then?
They make you ramp up through.
Oh, this is definitely harder.
Okay, so no. So basically, they ramp you up through different levels, quicker or slower, depending on how skilled you or how well you're doing in the game. Depending on... Okay, so they record the difficulty level they are on when you hit an obstacle and lose a life, and which life it is you've lost. Depending on those values, the player is judged to be good, medium, not so good, and the speed at which the difficulty levels ramp up is adjusted.
A lot of students have really nice ways of saying bad at the game.
Yeah, you can call us bad players, it's okay.
We don't penalise marks.
I think what I'm struggling with is just that sort of the difficulty of the obstacles that are generated in the background seem to increase, or seem to not increase sometimes.
So you obtain a high score from...
I think I've sort of got two sort of different sensations from this game.
Mm-hmm.
One is that sort of as you go through, your score doesn't feel hugely dependent on the obstacles it's throwing at you. How fast you're going, definitely, I can feel that.
Yeah.
But the obstacles, sort of, if it throws me a really hard forest, I don't feel more rewarded for completing that forest than if I'm just meandering through a very sparsely populated set of trees, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Which makes it seem like playing on a lower difficulty is just a better strategy. And the other thing was sometimes it doesn't... I'm sort of not noticing a particularly consistent feel with how it's giving me this difficulty. Sort of, I've been getting quite far into the game and getting quite straightforward things like that because I've failed early on.
Yes.
Despite the fact that I'm still quite far into the game.
And you're doing much better.
Yeah. It doesn't seem to be noticeably increasing it as I'm playing through it, if that makes sense.
Right.
And whether or not they're doing it in the background, I'm not noticing it.
Yes. Yes.
So again, I'm at 309 now on 1 life, and that's fine, I guess. But look at this is a very sparsely dense populated forest for 300 points in.
Can you go off the map?
I don't want to try. Oh, I'll try now, I guess. Can you just not talk, Ted? Because I feel like every time you talk, it lags.
Sorry.
You seem to somehow manage to make it lag every time.
Well, let's see if we can cheat.
Oh! Whoa!
There we go.
Fine. All right, that changes
fun.
things. Was not expecting that. I'm just gonna die because I don't want to go through on this run.
Alright, so let's go have our quick run through our list of things we're looking for in the game. Quality-wise,
it's beautiful.
It's beautiful. The music matches so nicely with the trail from the snowball. How does it feel sticky-wise, key-wise, control-wise?
So it's not as tight as some of the other games, but I think that works with the whole I'm a roly ball with momentum.
Right.
So I think it works quite nicely with the aesthetic.
Yeah. How do the mechanics feel in this? Do we care that we're rolling through trees and forests and speeding up, and then towns happen? And
Okay.
That was good play there.
Yeah, sure, it was intentional. That wasn't a good play. It feels very sort of sensible and pleasant to go down. And
okay.
It feels very... The style of obstacle you face feels very consistent, is what I'm trying to say. And yeah, I think in general, as a little game, it works.
Excellent.
Though there is this ever so slight sort of competition between, I want to relax, but it's going so fast.
Yes.
And again, I just can't make up my mind if I like that or not. On the one hand, it's calming me down as I'm going through this frustrating sort of experience. But on the other hand, it's not that sort of tense, fast-paced game you'd expect from this sort of style of game.
Yes.
So,
meaningfulness of the... So we talked a lot about already the adaptive difficulty and the procedural generations involved in this. Do you think they're meaningful in this game?
I think it's hard to tell, honestly.
Yeah,
I'm struggling to pick up on any sort of discernible action I'm taking.
That will affect the difficulty in some way or another.
I think if their attempts were definitely meaningful, but I don't know if it's actually necessarily been reflected in what they've done.
Field, yes.
Yeah, and what we can see.
All right.
I think I kept it nicely.
Yes, it is.
I love this music.
Yeah, we are entranced.
Yeah. I kind of wish that one thing they could have done with this, which is sort of completely different, would be to emphasize this sort of slow pace of it.
Yeah.
And provide you sort of just with changing, rolling different scenery rather than constantly speeding it up.
Right.
So sort of making the challenges themselves different and varied rather than just making them faster. To maintain this sort of just leisurely rolling down a hill
exploring
vibe.
A new environments
and it would have been a different game.
It would have, yeah.
But it would be, just a thought anyway. Quite a nice way to go with it. As it is, it's a good little dodgy endless runner, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you for the games. Was that our last one?
I think this was our last one.
All right. Well, we will be wrapping up for Batch 7, and please join us again for the next Let's Play of COMP3218's final coursework.